We are kicking off today with this weekend's SummerSlam from Cleveland, and though we are just days away from the biggest party of the summer, the card is always subject to change. Right now, 7 matches have been confirmed, down from the 9 matches fans saw in 2023, the 8 matches booked in 2022 and 2020, and the whopping 11 matches in 2021. With this in mind, fans have speculated that more matches will be announced, and Fightful Select reports that additional matches may be announced in the coming days. It was also noted that some previously announced matches could also be altered, though sources were unclear on which matches could see stipulations added. There's also the possibility of a match being added to the pre-show, which this year has grown to a whopping 3 hours, the longest a kickoff event has ever been. Right now, the only stipulation for this weekend will see Seth Rollins officiate the CM Punk vs. Drew McIntyre match, and could more stipulations be added? Only time will tell. One of the most hotly anticipated matches going into this weekend's event is the Punk vs. McIntyre match, a showdown that's been building since the Royal Rumble back in January. After months of being at each other's throats, the pair will finally go one-on-one this Saturday, but this match will apparently not be a one-off for both men. Discussing their upcoming match on ESPN's First Take, CM Punk made it clear that he's ready to move on from McIntyre after they face off in Cleveland, stating, "I'm done with Drew after Saturday. Yeah, I can put him in my rearview mirror. I can focus on bigger and better things." As for what those bigger things are, Punk said he's not sure and spoke about the wealth of talented people on the roster, including names he's faced before and those he hasn't. On Raw, Seth Rollins made clear that his rules will be in effect at SummerSlam, and no matter what comes next, CM Punk is ready to move on from the Scottish Warrior. Over to WWE NXT, and despite being a TNA wrestling star and under contract, Joe Hendry is making appearances wherever he wants, and has taken the Gold brand by storm as of late. Not just on NXT TV, Hendry has recently appeared at an NXT live event after his name was said, and received the spotlight during this week's NXT Great American Bash Night 1. The second hour of the special on Sci-Fi kicked off with everyone saying Hendry's name, and the Scottish star had the fans singing his entrance theme before he even spoke. Sitting in the ring with a guitar, Hendry sang about himself and his time in NXT, and proclaimed that Booker T is the president of his fan club, showing a photo of Booker in a kilt. This was a fun nod to Booker on commentary not being willing to say Hendry's name, as he doesn't appreciate the former TNA Digital Media Champion's appearances on the show. He then directed his song at Gallus, saying Joe Coffey looks like Dutch Mantel's son, and told fans to wave their hands if they hate Gallus, who were deported for having bad facial hair. This segment had fans clapping along and chanting "We Believe," and Hendry started an encore with his famous theme song, but Gallus interrupted and ended the concert. The faction attacked Hendry and smashed his guitar over his back in a clear setup for what may be the most anticipated match of the TNA star's NXT career. In a backstage segment, it was confirmed that Hendry will face Gallus's Joe Coffey next week on the second night of the Bash, but this segment may have teased much more than that. At the start of the segment, there was nobody in the background of the segment, but as Hendry continued to speak, it was clear that somebody was stood in the background watching him. While one may suspect that this was Coffey or another Gallus member, it'd be odd for them to remain in the blurry background as opposed to confronting Hendry or attacking him again. In fact, this tactic of clues being seen in the background has been used with the Wyatt Six, and is it possible that the group will target Hendry next after they deal with Chad Gable? It seems that somebody is watching Joe Hendry in NXT, and we'll hopefully learn more when he's in action during Part 2 of the Great American Bash. Hendry's concert proved a hit with fans, and when WWE shared a tweet with the caption, "Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Hendry," that caught the attention of fellow musician Elijah. In a tweet of his own, the former Elias reacted with a gif saying, "I can't look at that," as the ex-superstar wants no part of TNA Wrestling's viral star. When John Cena appeared at Money in the Bank 2024, he shared that his wrestling career will end in 2025, marking the end of one of the greatest in-ring careers the industry has ever seen. Little is known for certain about Cena's farewell tour, though fans can expect to see plenty of Big Match John, especially starting in January 2025. WRKD Wrestling reports that Cena will be a heavy presence on the initial few months of Raw after the Red Brand moves to Netflix next year. Fans will soon see John all over Monday Night Raw, but fans will get to see him far sooner than that in Springfield, as Cena will be part of the season 36 premiere of The Simpsons. The episode, which will see Bart have an epic birthday bash, will also include guest voice appearances by Tom Hanks, as well as former Simpsons writer Conan O'Brien. Cena will be the second ever WWE superstar on the show, as Bret Hart played himself on an episode in 1997, and this will be another feather in the cap of the 16-time world champion. Now, few NXT superstars have captured the WWE Universe's attention like Thea Hale, and this week, the Chase U star had a chance at NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez. The match headlined Week 1 of the Great American Bash, and dueling chants of Let's Go Thea and Let's Go Roxy showed that the fans were divided between the two talented stars. Chase U were in Thea's corner as the two traded holds, and Perez, who is hardly the tallest wrestler herself, belittled Hale as just a little girl, inadvertently motivating her. Hale rallied by hitting a neckbreaker and several other moves, but despite shaking the ropes like the Ultimate Warrior, she missed her lion salt as Perez moved out of the way. A dive to the outside by Hale was followed by a cross-body block from the top rope and another near fall, but Perez proved why she's been known as the Prodigy since arriving in NXT. When Hale avoided a pop rocks and locked in a Kimura lock, it appeared that a new champion was going to be crowned, but Perez reversed the hold into a crossface. Hale got up with Roxanne on her shoulders to escape and hit her springboard move for a 2 count as the crowd continued to shift closer to the edge of their seats. With the referee distracted, Perez poked Thea in the face and took control for a moment, but Hale avoided an attack and locked in another Kimura before the two continued trading holds. In the end, Perez nailed a pop rocks and got the clean win. She celebrated her victory as NXT Women's Champion with a smile as Part 1 of the Great American Bash went off the air. With Hale bested, Perez will move on to her next challenger, who many expect to be Julia, after she revealed this week that she'll be finishing her dates in Japan on August 19th. What's your take on Roxanne Perez's reign as NXT Women's Champion? Is she the best wrestler in the NXT Women's division? Let us know in the comments section. In 2020, Roman Reigns and Goldberg were set to face off at WrestleMania, but plans fell through as Reigns took a hiatus from WWE due to concerns over the COVID-19 pandemic. The match would eventually come nearly 2 years later at Elimination Chamber 2022, and in Saudi Arabia, the Battle of the Spears saw Reigns retain the Universal title. Speaking to Chris Van Vliet on the Insight podcast this week, Goldberg was asked about the dream match, which he believes did not live up to his expectations. He said, "No, it sucks. I had f***ing COVID 3 weeks before I was asked to do it. It was horrible. No, it was a favor. It was my job. I'm not gonna say no. I've never said no, really. I was asked to wrestle twice a year, and they were caught between a rock and a hard place, and I was their answer." Furthermore, Goldberg also felt he did a favor to Roman Reigns by having the highly publicized bout with him, elevating his position as the company's top flagship star. He said, "I feel like I did him a favor, and that's why I thought that the favor would be reciprocated, but it is what it is." Goldberg would be one of the many names Reigns defeated during his time as Universal Champion, a reign that would only end after 1,316 days by Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. The match saw Reigns defeat Goldberg via technical submission and retain his title, and though Goldberg claims he was promised another match in WWE, that never happened. Now a free agent, fans will have to wait and see what ultimately happens with Goldberg, as many are curious if he'll ever have a retirement match and get a proper storybook ending. Last year, rumors circulated that Goldberg's final match could happen in an AEW ring, especially after Tony Khan spoke of having great relationships with the WWE Hall of Famer. Those talks did not lead to a match, and when asked about his conversations with Khan, Bill compared the AEW president to another notable exec from the world of wrestling. "I think we just have a different perspective on it, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to really pass judgment on their production because I don't watch it. I see clips of it, and it's hard to give a rational breakdown of how they are if I don't really watch it, so I don't really know. Tony Khan reminds me of Dixie Carter, but a male version. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but he reminds me of that scenario. It's just a different feel, it's just different." Nowadays, an AEW match for Goldberg seems very unlikely, as Bill said earlier this year that he wanted to keep clear, only for Khan to claim Goldberg said he wanted to join. Do you think Goldberg did the Tribal Chief a favor by losing to him in 2022? And would you like to see one last match for the WCW legend? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. As WWE's top babyface, Cody Rhodes is a superstar who knows about forging positive relationships, but that allegedly hasn't always been the case. Speaking on his K100 podcast this week, Conan spoke about Rhodes and recalled the American Nightmare having heat with Brian Cage. This was during Cody's time with AEW, and though it's unclear what the heat was about, it was enough that Rhodes didn't want Cage at a Conan-booked show in Mexico. As he explained, "Brian Cage, to me, at the beginning, he had heat with Cody Rhodes, and Cody didn't want to bring him in. As a matter of fact, I was going to bring him to a show in Mexico, Brian was going to be in, Cody was going to be in it, and Cody asked me not to put him on it. They had some sort of heat." It's unclear what exactly caused this alleged heat, but Conan has claimed that Cage had heat in 2021 after his wife Melissa Santos publicly complained about AEW's booking of her husband. Ironically, Santos recently signed a contract with AEW, and while Rhodes is one of the most well-liked stars today, Brian Cage was allegedly able to get on his bad side years ago. In WWE Women's Tag Team title action, Lash Legends' power was on full display in this match, but Isla Dawn and Alba Fire were just too smart to lose the gold. The Unholy Union isolated Jakara Jackson for the evil touch to seal the victory, and this match certainly delivered, even with a commercial break just as the match was going strong. This was easily one of the best women's tag matches we've seen this year, unfortunately a low bar to cross, and serious credit has to go to the reigning women's tag team champions. It's a shame WWE does not seem interested in booking the Unholy Union often, because Fire and Dawn are a genuinely great tag team, as seen with their consistent double team offense. The pair also showed great team psychology as they sold the challenge of the rising babyfaces, and Legend and Jackson looked solid overall in this match. Legend especially showed out while Jackson got a little sloppy late, likely due to a lack of experience, but these two are women who you can definitely see improve with every match. NXT champion Ethan Page arrived just after this match and said that like his Metaphor teammates, Oro Mensah will lose in his title match next week. Page asked Mensah to take a close look at the NXT Championship, vowing it'd be as close as Mensah ever gets to the title, though the crowd mocked Page with 1, 2, 3 chants. This referenced the fact that Mensah has pinned Page not once, but twice, though these have not been in matches, but rather to send a message to the NXT Champion. As Page gloated in the ring, Mensah took his opportunity and pinned the champ for a third time, with Jackson and Legend counting Page's shoulders to the mat. This left Page fuming as the Metaphor members exited the ring, sending a clear message ahead of next week's championship match. This rivalry was born after Page injured Noam Dar with a backstage sneak attack, and will Mensah get the all-important fourth pinfall on Page next week? We'll have to wait and see. Tavion Heights took on Tony D'Angelo for the Heritage Cup this week, and the competitive match saw D'Angelo get the first fall in round 3 with a belly-to-belly suplex. After this fall, Miles Bourne tried to get Tavion together, but Ren Sinclair, who's been trying to get in with the No Quarter Catch crew, showed how things should be done. Shoving Bourne aside, Sinclair got in the ring and slapped Tavion in the face to wake him up, which directly led to him tying the score 1-1 with D'Angelo. Unfortunately for Heights and the crew, this wasn't enough, and Dempsey, Bourne, and Sinclair argued outside the ring as the match was going on. D'Angelo would score the decisive fall a few minutes later, retaining the Heritage Cup in the process in a match that could have gone longer, but was good for the time it got. When NXT 2.0 first arrived, 4 men were declared as the leaders of the brand. D'Angelo is the last man standing on the gold brand, and it shows in his experience edge over most of his peers. Now though, NXT is in a different era, and it's time for him to join Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, and Grayson Waller on the main roster, or at least the occasional match on Raw or SmackDown. While the crew may not have gotten the cup, Sinclair's motivation won't go unnoticed, and there may be a place for her in the faction after all. Shawn Spears arrived late to watch Cedric Alexander versus Brooke Jensen, the latter of whom showed his brutality with an onslaught that left Alexander reeling. After Jensen landed leg first on the announce table though, Alexander caught him with the lumbar check to win, in something of an upset, given the prominent role Jensen has had. There was not a result for this match that could help everyone, as Alexander needed a win after a big loss last week, but Jensen needed a win to keep his momentum going. Alexander won out, which was likely the right move, as the veteran cruiserweight needs some credibility, and this win sets up a likely battle with the chairman sooner rather than later. This was the continuation of establishing Cedric in NXT, and while Jensen looked solid and worked well with the veteran, this was a fine but forgettable match. When MJF returned to his heel roots recently, he did so in gruesome fashion by assaulting Daniel Garcia after his match with Will Ospreay and leaving him in a pool of his own blood. MJF knocked down officials who tried to stop him so he could continue his assault before escaping in the crowd, and the show ended with Garcia being taken out on a stretcher. Garcia hasn't competed for AEW since the July 3rd Dynamite, and AEW has a reason for writing Garcia off of TV with this brutal assault. While speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Bryan Alvarez noted that Daniel Garcia was written off television as a precaution in case Garcia decides to not re-sign with the company. Alvarez explained that the angle was set up knowing Garcia might not return, but if he does come back, there is a potential storyline feud with MJF. It was also said that Garcia, whose AEW deal is set to expire this October, has been contemplating his future and has mentioned to others he's weighing up his options. Garcia has been quite the fixture of AEW TV in recent years, but now he's at least considering a life outside the company, and uncertainty remains as to whether he'll be in an AEW ring again. What do you think of this story regarding Daniel Garcia being written off AEW television? Do you feel he will re-sign with AEW? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. It was on the 250th episode of Dynamite that MJF and Will Ospreay wrestled for close to an hour before the underhanded MJF won the International Championship. Since then, MJF has rechristened the title the AEW American Championship, but what is the reasoning behind this alteration to the gold? Fightful Select reports that the belief in AEW is that the American title is a temporary move to increase the heat of MJF ahead of All In next month in London's Wembley Stadium. It's also said that the feud between MJF and Ospreay was established long before MJF's return to AEW at Double or Nothing, and their program will culminate at All In. Ospreay also suggested putting over Swerve Strickland at Forbidden Door to avoid speculation about a match at All In, as fans expected Will would be in the world title match at Wembley. Instead, Ospreay will battle for the American title against the man who headlined last year's show, as Will looks to undo his loss on Dynamite 250 next month in his home country. But what do you make of this feud and the change from the international title to the AEW American Championship? Let us know down in the comments. More from AEW as Skye Blue will be out of action for the foreseeable future after the talented AEW and Ring of Honor performer underwent ankle surgery this week. On social media, Blue's partner Kyle Fletcher shared that Blue had gone under the knife and asked fans for their support to send prayers and cat toys. Fletcher included a photo of Blue, who had her leg in a cast and had crutches, and this surgery comes after Skye suffered a serious injury during a recent match on AEW Collision. When Hikaru Shida hit a crossbody to Blue on the outside of the ring, Skye was seen in pain when she landed, and after consulting with medical officials, the match was called off by the referee. Blue had to be carried to the back by medical officials as fans chanted her name in a show of respect, and we're sending our best to Skye Blue on her road to recovery. During the latest tapings of Ring of Honor, Sammy Guevara made a return to programming after a lengthy hiatus, but him being at an ROH taping raised some questions. Fans were expecting to see the Spanish God return to AEW, and some speculated that Guevara appearing for ROH instead was due to Mercedes Moné now being All Elite. In case you've forgotten, Guevara made some horrific comments about Moné years ago on a podcast, which would result in him being suspended from the company for a period of time. On Wrestling Observer Live, Bryan Alvarez shared that Moné has nothing to do with Guevara returning in ROH and not AEW, and that AEW had plans for Guevara to return on the main show. Guevara, however, was not cool with that storyline, which would have seen him turn heel, and instead plans changed, and he returned in ROH as a babyface. After his previous comments came to light, Guevara apologized publicly for what he said and spoke privately with Moné about his inexcusable conduct. Guevara will likely be a part of AEW again, just not right now, as he's ready to take Ring of Honor by storm as a babyface. More from NXT, and Jaida Parker picked up an impressive win over Kendal Gray, and while she is not ready to be champion, Parker is ready for a bigger spotlight in the gold brand. And in 6-women tag action, Lola Vice, Sol Ruca, and Karmen Petrovic worked well together, but Fallon Henley, Jacy, Jayne, and Jazmyn Nix just looked more cohesive as a unit. A Pele kick and a forearm strike into a lifting cutter on Petrovic sealed the deal for the heels in a showcase of the present and future of the NXT Women's Division. Everyone got a time to shine, and the right team won after a series of losses, and Vice has found her footing as a top woman in NXT, while Petrovic showed out through hard work. Ruca remains an inconsistent highlight reel performer that hits more than she misses, while Henley and Jayne showed all their tag team experience in some great sequences. Nix might have been the biggest surprise as she showed out with an obvious stumble in the match, and this win for the heels should have been the start of bigger things given their chemistry. And that was NXT Great American Bash Week 1, and what did you think? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching.